Hi there everybody, welcome to Mirror World News. I'm your host Adam, and today we are going to be talking about how to write an engaging opening for your story. Don't go away. Welcome back. Today I am joined, as always, by Justine Dowsett here from Mirror World Publishing to help me explain to you how to write an engaging opening and why that's even important for authors. So first of all, you have to consider your opening line. But is this even really that important?
I'm gonna link this back to what's in your submission package and the importance of hooking your reader. So when your reader or your publisher or your agent or anyone who's looking at your book, the first thing they see is that opening line. So you want to hook them right away to get them interested in what your story is about and to want to continue to read and to read on. So your opening line is critical.
Yeah, it's actually, some would say your opening line is one of the most important parts of your entire story.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I actually would agree with that point, because a lot of the times what I will do with a book is I'll pick up a book and I'll read the back and then I'll flip it to the front and I'll read maybe the first paragraph or two, but that first line really, that's what really sells a person to read a book. And I know a lot of readers do the same thing because there's so many books out there to read.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a good way to gauge the writing style too. Right away, you can see what kind of voice that they have from that first line.
Exactly. So yeah, consider your opening line. Make sure it's amazing, that it hooks everybody in right away. Now, there's also something to be said as to where to start your story and how to write your engaging opening. So you should probably start where your story actually picks up and gets going, correct?
Exactly. So it's called an inciting incident, or in medias res. You want to kind of start in the middle of things. That doesn't have to mean start in the middle of a fight scene or an action sequence. It just means start where the story picks up and starts to get interesting. So your first line and even your first paragraph should really reflect what your story is all about.
Mm-hmm. Now that doesn't mean like jump right in, like you said, don't jump right into like the final fight against the big baddie or something right away, but maybe, you know, where this person comes from, how they finally get put on this path right at the beginning of that. That way the reader can really kind of relate to the person and go along the story with him, right?
What is the incident that starts your story? What makes the main character start on this path that they're starting on? That incident should be the first scene.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now the next one, I have a lot of experience with this one, working with film and with video games and such. It's called info dumping or expositional dumping. It's something that readers have a very hard time sometimes with if it's not done naturally. So you should definitely, the next point is avoid info dumping. So what is info dumping?
Backstory, details about the setting, details about really anything about your character. Sometimes even descriptions can be done this way. You want to try to avoid large clumps of information, and the best way to handle that is to kind of seamlessly weave it into everything else that's going on. If you have dialogue happening or action happening, tell those little background details as they become necessary between those other lines. So you kind of weave it in so they kind of slowly get the information that they need without reflecting back on the history of, I don't know, your fantasy world that you're working on, whatever it is.
Exactly, yeah. So just to give you a quick example, if you want to tell the history about why these characters, I'm just going to something to the top of my head, why these characters are going to this tower to get this item.
Right.
Okay? You don't want to have a professor or someone talk to them about the history of the tower, where it was from, who the mage was that built it, why the item is important, all this stuff. You want to have it flow naturally through the story.
Right.
You don't just want to say, okay, the reader's going to need to know everything they know before I begin. Boom. No, add it in. Do flavor text here and there. Have your people discover ancient tablet laying on the ground that explains some stuff about the mage. Have one of the people in the town talk about why they need a certain piece of magic and where they might find it.
Or even more simply than that, as you're describing maybe the architecture of the building, kind of mention that it's from this period.
Yeah,
or, you know, just subtle little details that you worked in between what's actually going on. Don't stop the story for the expense of giving the background.
Right, and if you get a little bit more mindful of this, when you read books, when you watch movies, when you play video games, you'll notice these things. The more you practice not doing them, the more you're going to notice them in other works of media. And they're actually kind of fun sometimes to pick them out. And you're like, oh, I see why they said it that way. So now we know X, Y, Z. So that's something that's very important to me personally as well. So try to avoid them as much as possible. Now, for our next point is very important specifically for writing, which is show, don't tell.
Right.
Now, that might be kind of boggling, because how do you show somebody something in a book?
Well, this comes back to what we were just talking about the info dump. And the clever ways of sticking that information in is by showing them that information instead of just telling them, oh, this building was built in 1984 or whatever. So you can kind of show a sign that might say that or show something. So you want to focus on what's currently happening and not what has happened in the past or gotten them to this point. Also, active language versus passive language is another way of doing this. So you're currently using active verbs. This person is looking at this, or they're doing that, or they're going there, as opposed to they did that or got there. And that's not to say that you can't write your story in past tense. A lot of books are written in past tense, and that's a good thing. But just actively happening right now.
Yeah, you can even do things that are currently discovered by characters, even still writing in a past tense format.
Yeah, it's not about the verb tenses at all. It's just about how you describe it. Is it passively that the dog was chewing on the bone, or the dog chews on the bone, or chewed on the bone or whatever. So.
Yeah, or something along those lines.
It's hard to come up with examples off the top.
On the spot, yeah. But yeah, definitely also make sure to look into other narratives as well and find these examples of what you really got engaged with. Something that when someone describes something to you that you can physically see it in your brain, that's a great example of show, don't tell.
Right.
Now, we kind of bled into the last point there a little bit, which is write as actively and engagingly as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're tensing, so not past tense, present tense, or whatever, but writing as actively and engaging as possible. What is that, and why is it important?
Keeping the story moving, it's taking all these points and mixing them together. Just keep the story going, focus on what's currently happening, make sure it's engaging, and you're posing questions to the reader as you go, or having that reader in their mind say what's going to happen next. So just kind of keep that ball rolling and keep the momentum going as you're writing.
Yep. Now, all of these points are specifically designed about how to write an engaging opening. So specifically, considering your opening line is very important in an opening. Start where your story picks up is very important. Avoiding info dumps in the beginning of your story is extremely important. Show, don't tell is very important in the beginning because it engages your readers, and write as actively and engaging as possible. Now, later on in your book, don't lose these ideas because they're still important, right?
If you've done this in your opening, you've created yourself a habit, and hopefully you'll carry that forward. But once you're done your book and you're going back and you're rewriting and editing and ready to submit, take a really strong look at your sample chapters, specifically that opening line, that opening paragraph, that opening scene, and just make sure that engages your reader, hooks them, and makes them want to read the rest of your sample, and then that your sample makes them want to read the rest of the book. So it all kind of rolls into each other.
Yeah. So this is important not just for opening your book, but it, like Justine said, it gives you a great habit for the rest of the writing. So thank you all very much. So we hope this has been helpful for you for writing your engaging openings for your books. Definitely make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions for us, or for Justine, or for me, or any of us really, you can just put it down below in the comments, and we'll look and see what people need to know, and we'll make videos about it.
Yeah, if you've got any more topics for videos on writing or publishing or anything in the industry, just leave us a comment and we'll try to cover them.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all for watching, and you have yourselves a wonderful day.